Andrew's daughters Beatrice and Eugenie now have one option: to voluntarily renounce their royal title.
The British monarchy just crossed a line it has never crossed before, and once crossed, there is absolutely no going back. For the first time in modern royal history, two princesses born into their titles, raised within the institution, and guilty of absolutely nothing are being or symbolic window dressing. HRH is a marker of blood proximity to the throne. It signals that you are not just related to the royal family, you are of it. And here is what makes this situation so extraordinary. Those titles were not given to Beatrice and Eugenie by accident or tradition alone. They were chosen deliberately by their parents, Prince Andrew, Duke of York, and Sarah Ferguson, who wanted their daughters to be princesses. Royal commentator Angela Mollard has pointed out that unlike Princess Anne, who declined HRH titles for her children, and unlike Prince Edward, who made the same choice, Andrew and Fergie embraced the status and passed it on. At the time, that seemed like a gift. Now it looks like a burden no one knows how to put down. Because Beatrice and Eugenie are not working royals. This is a crucial fact that often gets lost. They do not carry out official royal duties, do not receive public funding, and do not appear on the royal rota like William and Kate, or Edward and Sophie. They have real jobs. Beatrice has worked in finance and technology. Eugenie is involved in the arts and anti-slavery campaigning. They are, by any reasonable measure, private individuals who happen to have titles. So here is the question. If they are already living private lives and not representing the crown in any official capacity, what exactly are those titles doing for them? And more importantly, what are those titles doing to the institution? That is the question King Charles is reportedly asking, and the answer is causing alarm inside the palace. To understand the pressure on Beatrice and Eugenie, you have to understand what their father's name now means. Prince Andrew, Duke of York, once seen as a war hero from the Falklands and a prominent member of the royal family, has become a major liability. The 2019 BBC Newsnight interview, widely considered one of the worst public relations performances in history, stripped away any remaining goodwill. The civil settlement with Virginia Giuffre, the removal of his military titles, and his effective banishment from public royal life only deepened the damage. Then came further reports, allegations that Andrew attempted to broker meetings between King Charles and a businessman linked to Chinese intelligence, suggestions of leaked palace communications, and ongoing disputes over his residence at Royal Lodge. Andrew is not just a disgraced royal living quietly. He is, according to reports, an ongoing problem for King Charles, a constant source of risk to the monarchy's reputation. Now look at Beatrice and Eugenie again. They share his name, they carry his titles. In the British system, titles pass through paternal lineage. Every time York appears in a negative headline, they are pulled into it. Every time Andrew creates controversy, their names follow close behind. They are collateral damage. And King Charles, according to Angela Mollard, has decided that enough is enough. This is not being framed as punishment, but as triage. The palace needs the public to see that this is not about their character. It is about protecting the institution from ongoing damage. But this is where it becomes complicated, because at its core, what King Charles is doing is asking his nieces to pay a price for their father's actions. Mollard argues they should voluntarily relinquish their HRH titles. She describes it as an act of renewal, a gesture of integrity and public accountability. A move that would align with Charles and William's vision of a smaller, more streamlined monarchy. She calls it a front-footed decision. That word matters. In crisis management, there are two approaches. reactive and proactive. Reactive means waiting until a decision is forced upon you, then complying under pressure. It looks weak, it looks defensive, and it feels like defeat when a move is forced at the last second. A reactive decision always carries that energy, like there was no real choice left. But being proactive is different. It means stepping in early, making the move before pressure builds, and controlling the narrative instead of being controlled by it. Mullard's argument is sharp and hard to ignore. If Beatrice and Eugenie wait until King Charles officially removes their titles, they risk being seen as victims of palace politics. But if they step back on their own, calmly and publicly, the entire story shifts. They are no longer casualties. They become women showing awareness, strength, and loyalty to the institution over personal status. And that image carries serious weight in today's fast-moving media world. There is also a clear generational shift happening here. Princess Anne chose not to give her children HRH titles, and Prince Edward and Sophie followed that same quiet, modern approach with their own children. The idea was simple: give them royal proximity without the pressure. Beatrice and Eugenie were not given that option at the time, but now, as adults, they have the power to make that choice themselves. Mullard goes even further, suggesting that those titles were never just about tradition. They reflected a mindset shaped by status and prestige, something strongly associated with Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson. That same focus, she argues, played a role in the path Andrew ultimately took, and now those titles carry more than honor. They carry baggage that cannot be ignored. Stepping away from those titles would not just be symbolic. It would send a clear message, a break from the past, from certain values, and from the weight attached to that name. When you place that next to the situation facing Beatrice and Eugenie, the contrast becomes difficult to ignore. Two women with largely private, scandal-free lives may be asked to give up their titles, while Harry continues to operate publicly with his, and that imbalance raises uncomfortable but necessary questions. Mullard suggests this moment could eventually open the door for Prince William to take similar action in the future, not as revenge, but as consistency. If the monarchy is serious about protecting its image and maintaining credibility, then the same principles must apply across the board, regardless of who is involved. William has remained publicly silent on Harry, but reports consistently describe their relationship as deeply fractured. The release of Spare did not just create tension, it caused lasting damage, and at this point, there is little sign of reconciliation. The situation becomes even more complicated when timing is considered. Harry previously criticized the royal family for making announcements that distracted from one another, calling it a harmful pattern. Yet during a moment when the Andrew scandal dominated headlines, and as William arrived in Brazil for a major Earthshot Prize engagement, Harry's team announced a trip to Canada. The timing drew immediate attention, and not in a good way. Mullard was direct in her response, calling it appalling and suggesting it was unlikely to be accidental. Agreements were reportedly in place to avoid exactly this kind of overlap, which makes the situation even harder to explain. The irony stands out. The same behavior Harry once criticized now appears reflected back at him, and it only adds another layer to an already complex situation. If Beatrice and Eugenie choose to step back with dignity, they will be demonstrating restraint and prioritizing the institution in a way that Harry, in recent years, has struggled to show. That contrast would be clear and difficult to ignore. It would highlight two very different approaches to responsibility, image, and loyalty within the same family. And yet, despite all the tension, not everything within the monarchy is unstable. While controversy surrounds some members, others are working to reinforce its relevance. In Rio de Janeiro, Prince William is presenting a very different image, focused, modern, and engaged with global challenges. At a time when the monarchy faces serious questions, William's presence on the world stage serves as a reminder that the institution is still evolving. It shows that even amid pressure and controversy, there is still a vision for what the monarchy can become moving forward. Prince William, the future king, is already showing what the next era of the monarchy could look like. His visit to Brazil for the Earthshot Prize at the COP30 UN Climate Summit was, by every serious account, a masterclass in modern royal presence. This was not stiff, distant royalty. This was something else entirely. He took off his shoes and played volleyball on the beach, laughing and moving like a normal person. He hugged crowds who rushed to see him, and it did not feel staged, it felt real. He met communities facing climate challenges head-on and spoke about solutions with clarity and confidence. This was not just appearance, it was engagement with purpose. And the reaction? Massive. Not just because he looked good on camera, though he did, but because of what it represented. At a time when royal headlines were drowning in scandal, William was thousands of miles away, showing that the monarchy can still mean something beyond titles and drama. While Andrew's situation was dragging the institution through controversy, William was out there changing the conversation. That contrast is not slouchy, it is strategy. Millard captured it perfectly. When the royal family gets it right, they really get it right. The Earthshot Prize is William's own initiative, something he built and continues to push forward. Environmental work is not new for him either. It is a path shaped over years, influenced by King Charles, who spent decades advocating for these same issues. These are the spaces where the monarchy still holds power, real influence, real visibility, real impact. And when you see William barefoot on a Brazilian beach, connecting with people without barriers, it becomes clear why the institution still survives. It is not about palaces or titles, it is about connection. Now place that image next to Harry's announcement about his Canada trip. The contrast is impossible to ignore. One brother is on a global stage, pushing forward a major conversation about climate change. The other makes a move that ends up clashing with that moment. One is building momentum, the other appears out of sync with it. This matters more than it seems because William will be king one day. And when that happens, the structure of the royal family will reflect his vision. The idea of a slimmed-down monarchy, fewer titles, fewer official roles, clearer purpose, is not just Charles's plan. It is William's too, and that puts Beatrice and Eugenie right in the middle of a much bigger shift. The monarchy William is preparing to lead is not the same one that exists today. He is aiming for something leaner, more focused, and easier to defend to a public that is asking harder questions than ever. Questions about value, relevance, and why these titles still matter. In that context, Beatrice and Eugenie's HRH titles are not just a future issue, they are a current one. But step away from the strategy for a second, because there is a human side to this story that often gets ignored. It is easy to talk about titles like they are chess pieces, like this is just a game of image and control. But Beatrice and Eugenie are not abstract figures. They are real people, with families, identities, and their own sense of self. Beatrice is in her mid-30s. She is married, has a daughter, and has spoken openly about her struggles with dyslexia, becoming an advocate for others facing similar challenges. She has built a career and tried to define herself beyond her royal background. Eugenie, also in her 30s, is married with 2 children and has committed herself to causes like anti-trafficking and modern slavery awareness. These are not surface-level interests. They reflect real dedication and long-term effort. These are not individuals drifting through life on inherited privilege. They are women who have tried to build something meaningful while carrying a name that comes with pressure they never chose. And now they are being asked, carefully, diplomatically, but clearly, to step away from a key part of their identity. Not because of their actions, but because of their fathers. They are being asked to show that his controversies do not define them, that the title given to them with pride is something they are willing to return for the sake of the institution. Think about that on a personal level. Imagine being placed in that position. Your family name becomes a source of public controversy, something you had no role in. And now the system you grew up in is asking you to give up the clearest symbol of where you belong within it. That is not a small request. That carries real emotional weight. There is loss in that. There is grief in that. Even if the reasoning makes sense, even if the decision could ultimately free them from a difficult association, it still means letting go of something deeply tied to identity. And that part of the story deserves attention too. Millard and others have been careful to point out that this is not about blame. Beatrice and Eugenie are not responsible for their father's actions. They are not being labeled as guilty. What is being asked of them is different. It is a sacrifice. A step taken not because they must, but because it may serve something larger than themselves. And that distinction matters, even if it does not make the decision easier. The real question is whether they are willing to make that move, and if they do, whether the institution will truly recognize what they gave up in the process. Because this all ties into a bigger transformation already underway. For years, King Charles has spoken about modernizing the monarchy, making it smaller, more efficient, and more aligned with the expectations of today's world. A world where people are questioning long-standing systems, including inherited status and public funding. That vision is no longer theoretical, it is happening now. And decisions like this are part of shaping what the monarchy will look like moving forward. At its core, this is about the purpose of an institution that, despite all its history and symbolism, can sometimes feel like a carefully staged performance. King Charles has long pushed a different vision, a smaller, tighter monarchy built around a core group of working royals, supported by family but without an extended circle holding HRH titles and privileges. That idea is not new, but now it is being tested in a very real way. The situation with Beatrice and Eugenie is not just another royal story, it is the test case. If they choose to step back voluntarily, Charles achieves something powerful. He proves that a slimmed-down monarchy is not just talk, it is action. He shows that even those closest to him are not exempt from change, and he regains a sense of control at a time when control has felt uncertain. And importantly, he does it quietly. No public confrontation, no dramatic fallout, no spectacle like the one that surrounded Prince Andrew. From a strategy standpoint, it is almost seamless, if it works. But there is real risk here. If Beatrice and Eugenie refuse, if they push back, seek legal advice, or turn to public opinion, the situation becomes far more complicated. Unlike Andrew's case, where there was precedent for stripping roles after stepping back, removing HRH titles from individuals who have done nothing wrong enters unclear legal and constitutional territory. This is not something the monarchy has had to navigate in modern times, and forcing it publicly could create more damage than it solves. That is exactly why the palace is reportedly handling this carefully, firm but quiet. And this does not stop with the York sisters. If the principle becomes clear that non-working royals should not hold HRH titles, then what happens next? What about future generations? What about the children of Charlotte or Louis one day? Further removed from the throne, the justification for titles becomes harder and harder to defend. And then, once again, the spotlight swings back to Harry, a duke who does not carry out royal duties, who lives abroad, who has openly criticized the institution, yet still holds a powerful title. How does that fit into this new model? If Beatrice and Eugenie are expected to step back, the pressure on Harry becomes impossible to ignore. Once this process begins, it does not stop easily. One decision leads to another, and the entire structure starts to shift. So what happens next? There are a few possible paths forward. The first, and cleanest scenario, is agreement. Beatrice and Eugenie release a carefully worded joint statement explaining that they are stepping back from their HRH titles by choice. They frame it as a reflection of their private lives and as support for the monarchy's future direction. The palace responds positively. King Charles praises their character, Prince William reinforces the message, and the transition feels smooth. In this version, the story is controlled, the precedent is set, and the monarchy moves forward stronger. And interestingly, this could actually elevate them in the public eye. People respect sacrifice, especially when it is made with dignity. If the narrative becomes that they chose integrity over status, they may gain more respect than they lose. The second scenario is resistance. They push back, argue fairly that they are not responsible for their father's actions, and question why they should pay the price. At that point, the palace faces a difficult choice: step back and appear weak, or push forward and risk turning the situation into a full public crisis. Neither outcome is ideal, and this path quickly becomes messy. The third scenario, and perhaps the most realistic, is negotiation. They agree to step back, but on carefully defined terms. There may be private discussions, certain assurances, or recognition of their contributions. It becomes a managed transition rather than a forced decision. These are not uninformed individuals. They understand how the system works. If they are going to give something up, they will want to protect their position, their families, and their dignity in the process. And when you step back and look at the bigger picture, this moment could become one of the most important turning points for the modern monarchy. If handled well, it is not just about titles, it is about principles. It shows a system willing to make difficult choices, even when those choices affect people who are not at fault. That is not easy, and it is not comfortable, but it may be necessary. Because survival in the modern world is not just about tradition or image, it is about accountability, clarity, and the willingness to adapt when pressure builds. The real question is how the public will see it. Will it be viewed as a necessary evolution, or as two women being asked to carry the burden of someone else's mistakes? That answer may say more about the future of the monarchy than any official decision. And this brings us to the heart of it all. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie are standing at a turning point they never chose. They did not create this situation, but they are the ones being asked to respond to it. Their parents' decisions, their father's controversies, the weight of expectations, those are the forces that place them here. And now they must decide whether to let go of titles that have been part of their identity for their entire lives. This is not just about policy or structure. It is about identity, belonging, and what it means to step away from something that has defined you in every public moment. Somewhere, away from headlines and analysis, two women are facing that reality. A title they did not ask for but have carried their entire lives is now something they may have to give up. And then there is Harry, still in California, still holding his title, still connected to the same institution he has publicly challenged. As these changes unfold, the focus on him will only grow. Because if accountability becomes the standard, it will eventually reach everyone. Prince William's future role is central to all of this. When he becomes king, he will shape the monarchy in his own image. And that image is already becoming clear, modern, engaged, and grounded in real-world relevance. The version of the monarchy he represents leaves little room for controversy without responsibility or status without contribution. That shift is already happening. Slowly, sometimes quietly, but undeniably. The era of Beatrice and Eugenie as HRH may be coming to an end, not because of failure, but because the institution itself is changing. And at the same time, a new era is beginning, one where titles carry expectations, and where those expectations are harder to ignore than ever before. Now, the only question is how it all plays out and what it means for everyone involved.